What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the third album by Dem Franchize Boyz. Basically, this project is called Our World, Our Way, and it came out in the fall of 2008. So the thing about this particular product is this is the quality third album to what Dem Franchize Boyz was up to throughout the mid and late 2000s. Basically, the pitch behind it was their Buzzing 2004 album, which I reviewed all their albums. Now this is the last one to get to, but their Buzzing 2004 album had a hit single on their White Tee, which caught some local noise and helped initiate Snap Rap, and then their 2006 album was a vastly successful one that did a lot of damage, and especially was one of the premier highlights of like Snap Rap and ringtone rap movement of the mid 2000s. Had 3 singles on there, just did a lot more damage and had a lot more affable type charm than what was expected back around that time. So yeah, they put out a third album here. This one didn't do as tremendous as like the previous 2 albums, but I would actually say this album probably did better than their first album. It's just kind of the concept that the singles didn't as much full-blown catch on compared to the 2006 album, which I think was kind of a surprise hit around that particular time. But this is a pretty affable one. This is a classic here. It's going to get a Raven Classic score, just would have to say. Surprise hit project that I just did not pay attention to as much back in the day, but has a lot of affable appeal, and this is an easy kind of highlight. Now, Dem Franchize Boyz have like a good assortment of secret projects. They have at least a couple mixtapes. I reviewed one of which was their 2007 mixtape, which was like the White Tee Gang mixtape. You can find that in the Dem Franchize Boyz playlist. I'd say there's a couple other ones. I don't remember as much full bound what they did, just because their discography is kind of here and there. There is like a mixtape from 2011 that's very difficult to track down for the most part, which was called Voltron, which I do want to get to if I could find the pitch behind it. But mixtapes, and especially some of these low-key type cats that are not folks like, Drake or Meek Mill or Rick Ross or Kendrick, some of these type of folks are just getting increasingly difficult to find. But there are at least, I might do a partial review just because there's like some songs that are kind of here and there on YouTube. But yeah, this is a classic project here. There are some other ones. There was at least an EP that Dem Franchize Boyz dropped, so there is more to get to. This had a couple quick singles, but the thing about it particularly here was the fact by late 2008, Snap Rap and ringtone rap was starting to get phased out in forms of more like R&B type bops, where you would put like R&B singers on the hook and less kind of traditional type songs like Lean With It, Rock With It, and Oh I Think They Like Me. Those particular tones, like the mid 2000s, were starting to get washed up a bit by this particular time. They at least tried it with the single Talking Out the Side of Your Neck, but this song did not as good compared to Turn Heads with Lloyd, and they have a good embrace about this, but this is kind of the concept. It just feels like on this particular album, for some strange reason, Dem Franchize Boyz is kind of seen as like an afterthought. But I look after it, and in no means is this a bad album. It's just kind of the concept. I don't want to say it was bad timing. It's just kind of the pitch that, this album dropped the same day as T.I. as far as that particular kind of went, and it just kind of felt like within both these type tones that this is kind of like the bite-sized version of Paper Trail. Has a lot of good pop radio grabs. They try to go for radio a lot of times in here. This is a more vanilla project, not quite as like addled and quite as drug dealer-esque as like On Top of Our Game is from 2006. It's just not as much like, it's not as much like Jeezy the Snowman and Yo God. It's not as much like Jeezy the Snowman and some of those type pitches that are popular trap rappers that were kind of around that particular time. This is just a less trap product. There's just not as much snap rap on here. The appeal, if you are looking for songs like Oh I Think They Like Me and Riding Rims and Suckers Come and Try Me and Lean With It, Rock With It, some of those type of ones. They do have a decent amount of songs. Like there's some songs like Put You On and Roll Your Arms, some of those type of ones, but for the most part, Snap is pretty beleaguered on this project, as if they realized that their original kind of come up was going to be a little bit different this time. But they do at least manage to have like a classic album. So the budget is definitely here as well. They have like some beats by Maestro, which was a pretty good Lil Wayne producer. Bangladesh is on here as well. Pretty excellent concept for that. Like Manny Fresh drops at least one beat, and Nitty drops at least one beat. There is like the dude Peanut that was on one of the songs, one of Dem Franchize Boyz' biggest songs. The Lean With It, Rock With It is at least on a particular song on here. I mean, yeah, it's just a good concept to get some of these. Lloyd is on here. He does a hook, so there is some good concepts about it. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. So First single is Talking Out the Side of Your Neck. This is like a rumbling kind of wrangler for like basic kind of frat commotion. I would feel like this is a summery kind of frolic and a good song to smoke up to. So it's this typical kind of fanfare. This is more like a promo type song, almost seemingly by Dem Franchize Boyz. It's kind of like a concept of them just trying to do like southern rap, where it's just kind of more vanilla and more heavyweight. I think the concept about it is in 2004, 2006, Dem Franchize Boyz were more of just like the local, maybe not local drug dealer, but this kind of aspect of this kind of more modest kind of capo type territory just within the pitch, compared to like the big heavyweights like Lil Wayne, Jeezy, T.I., some of those type of folks. Young Jock, I would say probably Young Jock was a bigger star around this particular time than Dem Franchize Boyz to some folks like that. But eventually Dem Franchize Boyz did manage to outweigh kind of Young Jock and some of those type of folks. Just kind of, they were just more in like buzz type territory in like the mid 2000s, but by this point they were trying to make grabs for like being more of like seminal kind of southern rap and pitches like that. It was a good concept. They do it. This is not really a snap rap song. It tries some new things. It has like this kind of like tuba-esque or whatever it would kind of particularly kind of be, this kind of more brassy type thumper as far as that poundiness kind of goes. Just a real nice rumbling type one, but it works pretty well. It's just a good buzz song. It's just some basic kind of social dap to kind of get here. I feel like, obviously, I do feel like Lean With It, Rock With It, and some of those type songs, I Think They Like Me, are a little bit more catchy, but this is a nice one to kind of get here for just some basic kind of dap and just kind of the concept of just like, hey, reading up with some of these folks, this good buzz noise. Turn Heads with Lloyd is an excellent highlight here, just to get this like a breezy kind of nightclub ambience. I'd have to say, just to marinate and kind of stretch out a bit, grab a brew, some BZ type music, and definitely like a fizzy kind of night to kind of get here. This is what I was talking about with some of these type ones, where they are more starting to embrace like the R&B type hooks. And this kind of lasted between like the mid-late 2000s to about the early 2010s. It's kind of the concept of songs like Trap Star and What You Know and Rubber Band Banks and It's Going Down. Some of those type pitches were more replaced with songs like like Live Your Life by T.I. and some of those type of ones. Like, I'm trying to think of this, where you would get hooks from like Akon and Trey Songz and a bunch of folks like that, Drake and Bruno Mars and some of those type of pitches. I had to say this is a good early taste of that in particular, but it works pretty well. It's just a real kind of affable type one. Just really feels like a simple kind of night of just marinating in a nightclub as far as that pitch kind of happen. Good concept, just be able to kick back, just BZ type music, just for standard, just chit chat, standard fare, just with an aspect behind a good tone. So yeah, it just kind of happens to be a thing. So the concept about this particular album, so unfortunately the iTunes edition, which I'm not as full blown sure if the iTunes edition is still on iTunes as far as that particular one goes, but there are two extra songs on there. One's It's a Go and the other one's Choosing. I'm going to assume that these songs are some further hits as far as that would particularly going to happen, but the Spotify edition has 13 songs. Out of those 13, I wound up recommending 12. So the only song I don't recommend on here is just the last song you hear, which is The Killers, The Dealers. And basically this one is just a poorer version of the song Talking Out the Side of Your Neck. This same kind of brassy type thump. There's another song like that as well. There's another song that's like that as well called I'm Fresh. That one just hits a lot heavier, but it just basically just has like a plotting typeness. It's kind of more kind of in between type song. Not as much like a turn up type song, but it just didn't really nail the appeal of what it was kind of aiming for. It's just kind of questionable some of the concepts. Like, I feel like if Talking Out the Side of Your Neck had kind of been like a Bangladesh type beat, like a Millie or something like that, it just kind of went for like a little bit more of like a sports game, kind of football game type rumble, more so than something of like going out to like a nightclub or some pitches like that. I'd have to say this a concept. It's surprising that they didn't. It's a new and refreshing sense of something out to kind of try, but it's like after the appeal, I was surprised that they just didn't go with like a dance club rumble or something more like Roll Your Arms or something like that. It's just a different taste of things. It worked. It's kind of like it worked haphazardly. I mean, it was kind of a relative win. It's probably like a 3 steps forward, 1 step back type pitch where it kind of did it, but just within the territory. It wasn't as much of like a humongous type victory like what was probably needed for them to drop more albums, but it was a good song, good buzz song. It's just the pitch that The Killers, The Dealers just nail as well. But yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. Appreciate every other song on this particular product beyond that, and I just would have to say, I would almost guess that the other 2 songs, It's a Go and Choosing, would probably be some further highlights, but I look after it. Kind of happens to be a thing, so we'll get towards some of these. So basically, Mr. Feelgood is a pretty nice one. This is a Manny Fresh beat. It's like a vintage kind of mid-2000s trap club bubbler. I'd have to say it reminds me of mid-2000s Jeezy, the USDA days from 2007, and the Inspiration days definitely. This feels like Blood Raw would be on this song, or Slick Pulla, someone like that. It's like an easy kind of money thrower and relish song to kind of get here as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's basic strip club kind of energy, some nights out, some pitches like that. Just what I'd say, just typical kind of Manny fresh hook. This feels like vintage and stock from like the mid 2000s. Good appeal. Put You On's a pretty nice one. It's like a typical kind of snap rap frolic of a song. Kind of get here some basic kind of vanilla ringtone hitter. I would definitely feel like kind of later in the game I'd had to say, but a continued bopper to kind of get. I definitely feel like one of these songs like Put You On or like Roll Your Arms, one of these types of ones probably should have been used as like a single as far as those particular pitches kind of happen, or Make You Mad, one of those type ones. But it just kind of felt like Dem Franchize Boyz was starting to graft away from that sound. And I mean, they at least did it, but it just kind of the concept that I don't know if they just didn't want to be pigeonholed or shoehorned, but it's just kind of the concept. I feel like just for old time's sake, they probably should have dropped one as a single. But Get Your Hustle On's another highlight. This is the real thumping type one. It's like a gnarled kind of night venue get crunk. It's like a gnarled kind of night venue get crunk, I'd have to say. This vintage Dem Franchize Boyz, I would feel like, but more vanilla and commercial snap about it. So it's just kind of the concept. There are some ones on here, like I was saying, this is a more amalgamated type product. This is like their cash grab of a project here, the one that probably has the most commercial bite. This is probably one that I want to say that actually on top of our game from 2006 when Platinum, that was just the more hungry type project. But this is kind of like more of like T.I.'s Paper Trail. This very similar. There's a lot of similarities between this project and T.I.'s Paper Trail. I just would have to say where T.I. kind of did some pop grabs and more songwriting just within the more kind of like public relations type factor about that particular project. But this is one that kind of has that same appeal as well. And it was an attempt. It just is too bad that a lot more of these songs didn't catch on as much, because this probably could have resulted in a lot more albums here as some of these type ones. But yeah, Get Your Hustle On is just a real nice one, and some good night type fare. Goes pretty well with Mr. Feelgood, some of those type ones. Come Come is a quality one. This goes great with like the Turn Heads single, I'd have to say. It's like a fizzy bopper, like I was saying, goes great with Turn Heads, the second single, and there's like a silky kind of, this has a silky hook on there, just very ready to go for radio grabs, I'd say. Just a tasty night to step out. I would definitely feel like with the Bella, as far as those pitches kind of happen, just some good appeals for some of that. Just date night type appeals, just to step out, just some jazzy type fare, just looking sparkly, some pitches like that. Just a good concept. Be able to have some great times, just in a more, not necessarily watered down, but just kind of more melded type sense. Of just kind of more, just easy kind of fizzy kickback, I'd have to say. Shoddy For Real is a real nice one. This has a nice typical kind of swag rap type appeal. That's another thing that's not on this project as much full blown as swag raps. This kind of a tone. They had some of that before, but this is not as much full blown on display. But this is one of those that kind of has that typical kind of Atlanta type fashion. It's like a jazzy kind of low key stunt night. I would definitely feel like a local version of like T.I. Paper Trail vibes. I would definitely have to say something like a more just kind of sparkly club hits, a little bit more of like a sparkly song, of like a song like Ready for Whatever by T.I. Some of those type tones. Sparkly club hop to kind of get here, and a good song to dance up to, I'd have to say. So yeah, it's just so a lot of this just has the appeal of like T.I.'s Paper Trail, just within the concept, but not the looming prison sense. I just would have to say it's just a more mini and kind of bite-sized version of some of those aspects. The budget might be minorly lower, but still a good concept. That this is pretty much like a premier kind of southern rap album for 2008. This was one of the front runners that, hey, this is notable enough. They're not as much in between kind of buzzing type folks. I mean, it's just more like if they were like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 in if they were like a 6 out of 10 in popularity back in 2006, they were probably like an 8 or an 8.5 in terms of like mainstream kind of appeal on this particular product. It may not have had, like, if this would have had a third or fourth single, it probably would have been like pretty front running for like the late 2000s. But it's just kind of the concept. This was a good attempt at doing it. Definitely came close. Number One Girl is an excellent highlight on here. It's probably one of the best songs in the album, full blown, I have to say, despite the fact that this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. It's like a swirling, kind of intimate nightclub highlight. I would definitely feel like this is social and swagged out kind of promo vibes about this particular song, and a great hazy beat to kind of get here. So this is a great one to take out of Bella. This pitch is like that. It's a good concept, but just some standard type of appeal. The social type of appeal with more ladies in mind, as far as those pitches kind of have. Great kind of date night pizzazz, and just an affable type one for just being more roused and rosy as far as those pitches kind of happen. It really has the affable type appeal. This is some swag rap that just nails it extremely well. Make You Mad is an excellent type one as well. It's like a throwback kind of mid-2000s DFB with ringtone heavy bopping, I would have to say here. Good glossy snap rap, I'd have to say, but it's just kind of more vanilla now. So just once again, the concepts behind a lot of these, just kind of the more graduation of getting past like snap rap and just not having it as much full blown on display. Just kind of the concept of, yeah, that was last year, or that was years ago, just kind of more of like a throwback jersey that was last year's vibes and pitches like that. But it's just a good concept to be able to have some of these on here. I do definitely feel like one of these songs probably should have been used as like a third single, something like that. It just makes me question if it would have been able to. I almost question if like Dem Franchize Boyz. Almost question if Dem Franchize Boyz themselves would have been able to do like a snap rap highlight as good as like Lean With It, Rock With It, or Oh I Think They Like Me, or Riding Rims, some of those type ones, or even White Tee within those pitches. I mean, they do have the songs in here. I probably would have just went with Roll Your Arms. I would have said that would have been an excellent type one for like a just follow-up third single just for old time's sake, but this Make You Mad's pretty good pitch. It's more traditional, kind of like White Tee type vibes from their 2004 days, just more riled up type fare, just almost within a crunk sense, I'd have to say. And then I'm Fresh is a quality one. It's like a good companion with Talking Out the Side of Your Neck, just a feeling good and tipsy kind of day outing buzz kind of get here, and this is a great one to just have a time to. So it's just a good pitch, great one to get. This is a great one to be pretty tore up to, just have several drinks in your system, just kind of football outings, social outings, pitches like that, just mall hopping, some of that type fare, just going out shopping, some of that typeness kind of get. It's a good concept, just the socializing kind of frat energy of like a summer frolic as far as those pitches can happen. Very similar in production to Talking Out the Side of Your Neck. Some of these just have that relative type of PL, but yeah, it's just some good concepts. And then the Life is a quality one as well. It's like a relative pop grab, I'd have to say, pretty similar to like T.I.'s Live Your Life, I'd have to say, in a more ringtone type fashion. I would definitely feel like just a mini version of the stuff that T.I. was kind of doing, or just a more mini version of the stuff that T.I. was doing in like 2008 with Paper Trail, definitely. It's like some uptown kind of city hopping, so it just has like just the candor of this particular song is basically just like not necessarily a poor man's version of Live Your Life, but just like a more low-key type version, just the pitch behind it, just realizing it's just kind of the same aspect, just not as like gargantuan, I'd have to say. Like a song that, I mean, this song didn't chart and it wasn't released as a single, but it definitely had some grabs to be tried to be released to radio just within the pitch. It has the attempts that it can get some. It didn't get airplay. It just has radio bite to be able to say about it. So it's just a good concept, kind of get some of that within that fashion. It's ringtone variation of that, and it's just uptown type flavor just within the pitch behind it. It's good. Kind of simmering skies, kind of orange skies type pitch, kind of get for some of that type fare of a cruise around and pitches like that, I'd have to say. Just pick up supply, some of that type fare. And then Roll Your Arms, like I was saying, this is once again on the 2007 mixtape by Dem Franchize Boyz. I'd have to say, now that's pretty tough to track down. I just would have to say, I don't know if it's still even available with the Internet Archive kind of having the Internet Archive kind of having problems currently, I'd have to say, but this is a throwback highlight from the 2007 mixtape by them. Classic snap hitter kind of get here. Now, if you want more songs like that, I would definitely try to somehow find the concepts of getting that 2007 tape just within the pitch behind it. But I look at it, it's just an excellent kind of highlight just within that fare. Good tone for that. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'm going to go ahead and give like a 10 out of 10 as well. I just feel like the appeal behind it, they really tried on this particular product. They made a lot of appeal. This has a lot of pop grabs, a lot of great songs for ladies. It's pretty affable within that aspect. It's great for date night pitches like that. Some club hopping, taking ladies along for club night as far as that pitch kind of happens. There are some songs for your dogs and homies as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's an aspect of like some standard snap rap type songs for old time's sake, some of that type fare, some of those type aspects. Just a lot of club hitters just within the pitch, just some step out and just some feel good. Now I kind of realized that this is a good album here, but the concept as far as getting like hella tore up, I feel like the pill popping, the smokage, the drinkage, the hella beers, the hella brews, the hella hard liquor, the super smoking. If you notice, I didn't talk as much full blown about smoking on this particular project. It's not so much as toned down to the point where it just doesn't happen, but this is kind of the tone that it just is a little bit more pizzazz, not so much composed about it, but just the concept of this more feel good type vibes where it just is not, at least from what I was gathering on here, it just felt like it was a little bit more, not necessarily formal, but just not as much shredding like, you know, like in terms of standard get tore up like they were in 2004 and 2006. It just has a little bit more sageness about it just within the tone. Just a good pitch to kind of get that, but it's just kind of the thing. I mean, these songs are great to get tore up to, but it's just not as crazy like lean in and rolling like you were with Lean With It, Rock With It, and Riding Rims and some of those type ones. Oh, I Think They Like Me, Suckers Come and Try Me, some of the other hits off On Top of Our Game. But I would probably say if you do need songs to get tore up to just within pitch, I'd say Roll Your Arms. I would say probably put you on, get you hustle on. I'm fresh to like a relatively modest sense. I just would have to say within the tone, but it's just once again it's just not as full bound with the crazy factor, but still a classic album here. So in terms of the future, like Dem Franchize Boyz, this is their most recent album. They do have some projects, like I was saying, they did have like the 2011 mixtape Voltron, which I'm going to try to track down, but it's just kind of difficult with all these problems that are going on with mixtape hosting websites. I just would have to say on top of that, they do have some other products. They do have like White Tea Gang, the mixtape 2, which I'll probably try to find that one, and then there's like at least an EP or something like that. So there are a few more, but it's just kind of within the concept about finding some of these. But this classic album, so basically damn near Dem Franchize Boyz, all three of their albums are just top notch within that appeal. Snap rap classics, just ringtone rap classics, just within the pitch behind it, especially on top of our game in this one. I would say this is a very inspired type one, just a lot of heat, especially in like a local type sense, just a mini type version of T.I.'s Paper Trail.